back to Beyond the Balance Sheet, the series where we explore the trends and ideas shaping the future of finance. I'm Nicole Holmes, Vice President of Global Customer Marketing at SAP Concur, and I'm thrilled to be your host for today's episode. Today, we're diving into the evolving role of business travel. As organizations navigate shifting budgets, employee expectations, and new technologies like AI, travel has become more than just a cost center. It's a strategic lever. Joining us today is Charlie Sultan, President of SAP Concur Travel. Charlie, thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you on the show.
No, thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're excited to hear your perspective on how finance leaders can rethink the value of travel and prepare for what's ahead. So let's just dive right in. So first of all, we're seeing both remote and hybrid work continue on. What are some of the most compelling reasons you're seeing why companies still invest in travel, and how should finance leaders measure its value beyond the bottom line?
Well, we just got some survey results back last month. We did a global business traveler survey with about 600 CFOs, 700 travel managers, and over 3,700 travelers all across the globe. And we heard some really interesting things. One, 90% of the CFOs are telling us that budgets are either flat or going up. So clearly, they're still investing in travel. 81% of them actually said that budget limitations are preventing their employees from traveling as much as they need to do their jobs effectively. So they recognize that travel is necessary to do their jobs effectively. They know that face-to-face meetings still drive business outcomes. 94% of them actually said that travel is helpful or essential for them to successfully do their jobs. But ultimately, I think a lot of them are trying to see if there's alternatives out there, whether it's webinars, whether it's Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, the like. And the reality is I think you can nurture existing relationships over video for a certain time period, but it's very difficult to build new relationships, to further old relationships if you're not face to face. So I think people know that. Also, investing in travel is necessary because many employees consider travel to be a key element in their job satisfaction. So I think finance teams need to measure the value of travel, not just by the immediate ROI of that one specific trip, but by looking on the impact on the supplier, vendor, customer, lender relationships, along with employee development and overall strategic goals of the company. So, obviously, looking at client retention, employee engagement, innovation outcomes, those can all sort of give you a good insight as to the broader business value of travel.
So you mentioned the Global Business Travel Research Study just a moment ago, and how many companies are still seeing travel budgets start to return now. But at the same time, we know employees are expecting more flexibility and wellness at work. So how can finance leaders find that balance between the fiscal responsibility and the employee engagement?
Yeah, it is interesting. I think the research showed that although the travel budgets are increasing and travelers are willing to travel, that it's still not enough. In some cases, travel policies are actually becoming a little bit stricter. 90% of the respondents gave us examples where their company has cut back in the last year. So things like not allowing an extra night to avoid a day trip, or not allowing them to stay in or to fly in premium cabins. A quarter to a third of them, depending on the region, are no longer willing to pay more for a nonstop flight. So what that's doing is employees are actually starting to pay out of pocket for some of those items to enhance their own wellness. Especially the Gen Z and the millennials, more than others, are actually paying for upgrades on flights, or they're paying for nicer hotel rooms or club level hotel rooms to get the experience that they prefer and make their travel a little bit more tolerable. So overall, it seems like maybe finance and each leaders, maybe they have struck a decent balance. Of the survey respondents, only 7% of them said that they were traveling much less than they would like. So this is where finance leaders and travel managers really need to strategize. I think, Companies can travel smarter by consolidating trips, maybe focus on high impact meetings, perhaps maybe sending fewer employees to face meetings if necessary. And really, the other way that they can do this is by fully utilizing the power of booking tools that have robust travel content to make sure that their travelers are seeing all of the best fares and all of the rates to keep their spend lower. In our case, Concur Travel customers have access now to the newest booking tool that has about 10 times the amount of hotel content that was available before. We've added a ton of NDC and Direct Connect content, which a lot of times is $10 to $100 lower than the traditional tools and content. So a lot of saving money certainly helps with financial responsibilities. So companies should look to leverage the latest technology, including AI, to help their employees be more productive and ensure that they can comply with company policies.
Well, speaking of that, as we talk about modernizing travel programs, we're hearing AI and automation all over the place. So how should finance leaders think about using these emerging technologies to optimize their travel planning and leverage their company's data?
Well, we really didn't think we could get through a call these days without talking about AI, did we? So, obviously the increased use of technology, the use of AI can really help in stretching the overall budgets and stretching productivity, saving time, saving money, saving employee effort. And look, even though AI is all the rage right now, our company has actually been using AI and machine learning for more than a decade. So customers have told us that they see a lot of impact from solutions that we launched, such as Verify, which performs audit checks on expense reports, which helps reduce spend leakage and improve policy compliance. We've had an Expenseit product, which automatically grabs things from your receipts and puts them in the expense report. So it's not new technology per se, but the technology just keeps advancing so quickly and does keep progressing to the point where finance leaders do need to be asking themselves, are you set up to take advantage of all of your data and the power of technology? And look, I wasn't all that bought into some of the big buzzwords over the last several years. Blockchain was really big for a while. Big data was the word that was thrown around. But I'm really so excited about the power of AI and agentic AI. I think for companies to be able to realize the maximum benefits of this, it's really helpful for all of their data to be fully integrated in a system. So can your travel data easily talk to your expense data? Can it talk to your HR data, your CRM, your budget system, your finance system? I think finance leaders really need to recognize the ability to leverage the latest technology, and they're going to be able to do so if their data is integrated and their systems can talk to one another. They also need to know, how is their data being used? Is their data being treated securely? Is it with reputable companies that are investing heavily in security? For us, SAP was one of the first companies to have a formal AI ethics policy back in 2018. We have an internal AI ethics committee which evaluates use cases before anything is developed or delivered to customers. We consult with an external panel of experts from the industry and academia. So, we already have several AI features live, and we're helping to save travelers and travel planners and finance and account teams time. And so now we're looking forward to how can we use agentic AI to help surface questions and answers to those teams, maybe even before they actually ask the questions.
Do you have maybe like a real world example that you could share with us about how that's being used?
I think there's two really cool things, in terms of how they're being used. I don't want to make this a commercial for Concur Travel and Expense, so people can go to our websites and see the cool use cases. Every quarter we launch another 3 or 4 AI use cases. But as I start looking to the future and I look into how your data can fully be integrated, let's think about a situation where maybe you put an appointment on your calendar to go to a conference in Barcelona. You don't live in Barcelona. The system recognizes that you're in Seattle, that you need to get to Barcelona. It asks you if you're planning on attending in person. It goes into the system and says, okay, you typically like to fly on Delta. You typically like to stay at a Marriott hotel, and so it can suggest those particular flights that get you there in time. It can suggest the hotel that's near the convention or near where your meeting's going to be. And then maybe it happens to go into the vacation system and recognizes that, hey, this conference is in November and you're still going to have 4 vacation days that you haven't allocated anywhere. Would you like me to request vacation time for you? Would you like me to extend your stay by a few days? And then when you're done and you get back and your expenses are automatically being written for you, it pulls out those additional 3 days that you decided to stay, and it knows not to expense those 3 days of hotel because those were there for personal uses. So there's a lot of different ways that the systems can start talking to each other without you having to go and enter multiple pieces of information over and over again into the different places. So there's a lot of cool stuff there. There's a lot of cool use cases with the ROI of travel that companies have been trying to solve for a while. So if your CRM system and your travel system and your expense system are all tied together, it allows for the ability in the future to do some really cool things where maybe the system can be telling you, hey, you haven't visited this customer in a while. Maybe it's time for you to go visit that customer. And while you're there, you've told me you care about sustainability. So you should also visit these 2 or 3 other customers that are all within driving distance or train distance to be able to go do that. So I think the continuous communication between systems is going to help us really predict how we should be able to do things and really help educate us before we even need to go ask the questions ourselves.
That Barcelona example sounded actually very familiar to a trip I have coming up. So it makes it very, very exciting and feel real. All right, Charlie, one final question. As you look ahead, let's say 12 to 18 months, what are the biggest shifts you're anticipating in business travel? And how can our finance teams help support their travelers through them?
I mean, I think we're starting to see some of these in the nascent stages. But many companies have been seeing the benefits of integrated travel and expense for a long, long time. But now companies are looking to integrate even more heavily across the rest of their internal system, as I said, to sort of really recognize and realize the full productivity benefits of AI. And then in addition to AI, I think companies do need to focus on the employee experience. We started this conversation talking about how policies maybe are getting stricter. But travelers are actually expecting more flexibility, right? Travelers want more comfort. They want communication. They want safety and trust. I think only 38% of them feel like their well-being is being prioritized. So it's not just about where people go. It's about how they feel when they get there, if they're productive on their trips, if they're giving their best, if they feel happy to be working for their company and representing their company. I think teams can continue to explore how their technologies can make life easier for themselves